Hello, BookTube. I went out earlier today into downtown Boston, which puts me in mind of a little public service announcement to you dog-walking people in downtown Boston. If you're walking your well-trained dog down the sidewalk and your dog breaks training in order to lunge at me, and then breaks training even more by jumping up on me and trying to lick my face right off my head, your dog is doing that because your dog asked permission and got it. And I also asked permission and got it, and none of it involves you, you stupid uptight primate. So just stand there, okay? Just stand there and hold the leash, and when we're done, we'll let you know. Yeesh. It was a very wonderful morning, but it involved a few tense, stupid primate owners. I had a bunch of things to do. And naturally, since I was in the area, I went back to the Brattle Bookshop. Now, I know some of you who might be new to the channel might be saying, well, how on earth could you go back to the same bookstore when you were just there a couple of days ago? And that's because the Brattle has a huge turnover. And not only that, it's not just the turnover. It's also the fact that the outdoor sale lot of the Brattle Bookshop has thousands of books. You devote a huge chunk of time to looking at those carts. Maybe you start and decide, I'm going to look at every single book. I do that often. I make that resolution often. You won't do it. Your eyes might see every book, but you won't take them all in. After a while, you'll simply numb over. They'll start to blur together. Or you'll miss some. Or in the day or two or three or a week between one visit and the next, some of your reading interests and priorities will shift around. I do a lot of reading every day, a lot. And a lot of that is suggestive. I not only do a lot of reading, but I watch a lot of BookTube. The things that will appeal to me out of the completely random chaos of the Brattle sale lot almost change every day. So I do go back as often as I can. I was in the neighborhood. I went back today, and I got a pile of books. That is always going to be true. That is always going to happen. And I wanted to show them to you. I got mostly big, fat, heavy hardcovers once again. I don't know why I do that. It's certainly not the easiest thing to lug around. But I also got a bunch of paperbacks. There's a large selection of old, pulpy, mass-market paperbacks that the Brattle has. And I went there in order to pour through those books, title by title, spine by spine, looking for trash. I've gone to that section looking through it for science fiction. I've gone through it looking for westerns, really good for westerns. I've gone through it looking for mysteries. But this time, since it's a separate section, it's not the sale lot. In the sale lot, it is deadly to go there looking for something. Because not only will you not find that something, but you won't find anything else either. The gods of the Brattle sale lot value kismet above all else. They value random serendipity above all else. You can't bully them. But this is a section inside the store, and they're all set together. So I thought, well, I'm not offending any gods here if I go through here and look for trash, because, of course, it's August, and that is the month of Garb-August, created by Ollie at Criminale and inflicted on the rest of the world, where we all read trash for the month of August. Now, I have a lot of trash already. I have a pile of it that I've been accumulating all year long, and I also have an enormous amount of it as ebooks. But I think we can all agree that when it's Garb-August, you can't have enough trash. So I went looking in those books, and I don't think the books there in that section have changed, but I have changed, like I'm saying, about the sale lot. The last time I was looking through every one of those books, book by book, I was looking for something else. This time around, I was looking for trash. Now, the first thing that I found is not trash. It's an old pocket paperback, very old pocket paperback, and for some reason, for a while there, these old pocket paperbacks were made really well, so that you can open them, they'll lie flat on a table, they don't seem to age or brittle or stiffen or anything like that. I have quite a few of them, and I never pass them up. They're a little bit uncongenial to read because they're so small and because you can't pinch the type or increase the illumination or any of the other things that you can do like a normal person with ebooks. But I found a Mary Roberts Rinehart mystery. I love Mary Roberts Rinehart, the Agatha Christie of America. I found one called The Album. I want to block the bean here, the sleeping bean. And this is what I mean. These things are incredibly durable. They're just really, really well made. I don't know why. I don't know what the point was. It certainly didn't stay true. When did this come out? This will give me the original copyright of the album, but it will also give me the copyright of the pocket reprint, I would imagine. This book is not a digest or a condensation of the original. It is the complete book. Very good. Thank you kindly. Okay, can we get to a copyright page? Would be nice. Copyright page would be nice. Oh my God. Okay, I have the grounds. I have the grounds of the Crescent, which is the hoity-toity neighborhood where the murders take place. And then I am solemnly assured that this is the complete book, but no information at all. Oh, here we go. Okay, so the book came out in 1933, and this pocket edition came out in 1941. When, in America in 1941, wouldn't paper rationing have been on? So you'd expect this to be really cheaply done, but instead it's just, oh goodness gracious. Oh my, well, all right, in addition to the location, I have little mugshots of literally all the people and the suspects. How wonderful. That is just adorable. They just go on and on. You get everybody in here. And this is like a tontine. 13 people live on the exclusive Crescent, and 4 of them are murdered. One by an axe, another by a gun, another by an all too improbable accident, and the 4th in a way too gruesome to mention. Here's a mystery setting full of suspense and horror that only Mary Roberts Rinehart can give you, for the answer to it all lies in a dusty old album that anyone could look at. I don't think I've ever read this. I think at one point or another, I think I've owned every Mary Roberts Rinehart, but I don't know her work the way that I should. I really should know it a lot better. I've never been disappointed by this author. So I got this, and that's certainly not trash. The right kind of trash. Good trash. Okay? It's also not bad good trash. It's not the kind of trash we're talking about for Garbogus. There's what we mentioned in my quadratic equation yesterday that a lot of you have been ribbing me about. Apparently a lot of you got how much fun it was intended in the spirit of. That's wonderful. Like I say all the time, I've fallen in with a good crowd here. And in that quadratic equation I mentioned there's good trash, and in good trash there's good trash and bad good trash. And then there's bad trash. And good bad trash is canonical stuff that's nevertheless terrible, like Ayn Rand, right? The Fountainhead is obviously good, bad trash because it's terrible. But it is taught, it is reprinted, it's sold millions of copies, people swear by it, the Dude Bros swear by it, so you can't just dismiss it entirely. And then there's bad trash that is legitimately evil, legitimately worthless. And most people, I think, most book snobs like to think that my quadratic equation is far too complex and that something like this is trash. Just, I'm looking at it, and I can tell that it's trash. It's not true, of course. We all know better than that. It's not true. Those same snobs would do the same thing about a little science fiction novel. Even if the little science fiction novel said, Dune on cover, they wouldn't care. It's a novel about sand, is it? So this wasn't trash, but all the rest of what I got, the other paperbacks that I got, I'm guessing they're trash. And I have to admit, when I make that guess, I am largely guessing by cover and also title. So let's take a look at the first one. The first one is rather tame. This is by Florence Stonebreaker. No idea who Florence Stonebreaker is. Is that a pen name? Stonebreaker is the same as Ballbuster. Is that a pen name, or was this a real person? No idea. Did she write a lot? No idea. Was this a man? I have no idea. But I found this. This is by Lawrence Stonebreaker, and it's called Young Dr. Elliot. The story of a young doctor's struggles between emotion and dedication. And there he is about to do a medical laying on of the hands. And we've got Lessons in Love. Mildred. She progressed from erotic literature to real-life passion. That's what happened to my Deb. Helen, she was trapped in two kinds of love, both of them forbidden. Also true of my Deb. Violet, who proved that even a doctor isn't immune to temptation. And Carol, in public the respectable wife of Dr. Eliot, she was in secret the slave of a lusty, uncomplicated riding master. Okay, hope you mean horses there. And then we have a quote. She was like a person who was crazed with the hunger for liquor. There was no rest from it. They had an Alcoholics Anonymous to cure dipsomaniacs. Why didn't they have a Lovers Anonymous to cure women like her? I believe it's called marriage. Okay, up top. Here is a frank modern novel about the psychologist and his women patients, and what happens when the love doctor forgets the code of his own profession. Okay, I think that probably qualifies as garbage. I'm guessing that it does. But the other two, I have no doubt whatsoever. The first one is by Richard Coleman, and it is called Don't You Weep, Don't You Moan. If you think that's a great title, wait till you see the next one. In a sensuous, high-voltage story of a young swamp girl thrust into the seething back streets of a city where the days and nights are streaked with the hot flame of furious living. What on earth is a swamp girl? Is that why she's only wearing her underwear? Wouldn't the midges and the mosquitoes get at you even worse if you didn't? I mean, she's only wearing her underwear, but you have time to put on earrings like those? I ask you. And believe it or not, this thing has a blurb. It's a blurb from the Washington Times. The story rises and swells to heights of barbaric beauty, and then as suddenly swoops downward to an almost frightening brutality. Okay, so I guess I don't know who wrote that blurb from the Washington Times. I have no idea whether it was part of an actual book review, but you can tell from the wording of the blurb that the author was using this book for non-literary purposes. The story rises and swells to heights of barbaric beauty, and then as suddenly swoops downward to an almost frightening brutality. If you ask real nice, your doctor has something for that. And then the piece de resistance when it comes to trash. I'm fairly certain that this is garbage. This is by Howard Schoenfeld, and the title of it is Let Them Eat Bullets. Now, surely one of the yardsticks we can use for whether or not something is garbage is whether or not the title is literal nonsense. And that is literal nonsense. I have no idea what that means. But we have, let's see here. One of these daredevils is a private eye, a knight-errant with a nose for trouble. His carbon copy is a college professor, an idea man with a nose for the ladies. When they pooled their resources, all hell broke loose, including blondes, lead showers, and teenage psychotics. It was murder, literally, until the twin brothers staged a reckless double shuffle that blew up even the New York cops. And here we get a helpful illustration of the twin brothers, one of whom is a private eye, and the other of whom is a college professor. And here we're going to be dealing with blondes, lead showers, and teenage psychotics. So it's a piece of trash about Micah Cummins. And believe it or not, there's a blurb on this one too. Good Lord, is there more than one? Ellery Queen's magazine is talking about the author, not necessarily about this one book, says he might easily become a figure to reckon with should he write a traditional private eye shocker. Meaning what? Meaning, what is this then? It's got a private eye in it. It's got lead showers in it. How is this not traditional? Unless maybe that's Ellery Queen magazine's way of saying if he were ever to write anything good, it might be worth your time. Howard Schoenfeld did it. This is it. The yarn Anthony Boucher called Complete with Gangsters, Blackmail, Corpses Galore, and a Nympho Sadist with Arrested Development. The funniest caper since S.J. Perlman's Farewell, My Lovely Appetizer. Oh, come now. I've never heard of this guy. Oh, come now. Meet Jerry Nelson, a tough private eye who knew what to feed a public enemy. Okay, let them eat bullets. Right, so those are the paperbacks. I'm counting on a lot of good trash there. But then we have the hardcovers. Extra heavy hardcovers of all types and sizes. So the first one is, be well familiar to you. This is Patriotic Gore by Edmund Wilson. This is his book of collected literary essays reflecting on the literature of the American Civil War. Pilloried by some clear-eyed critics in its day and pilloried ever since for what a weird book it is. What a weird book this is. I think it is saved from a lot of the criticism that it has of being blind to slavery or war or amputation or anything like that. I think it's immune to a lot of that criticism because it makes it pretty clear, as Wilson tended to do, that that was never his intent. That that's not what this book is for. But I've had this before. A lot of you will remember there was a little mass market, a fat white mass market paperback of this that I sold a lot of. It was always in book. Once upon a time, you could always find that little paperback in bookstores. That was always the one that I had. It was always the copy that I had. I was constantly renewing it. I was constantly buying new ones because that old copy just flew apart. It was not made for repeated reading. It wasn't even made really for a rough handling once. I wanted to write in the margins. This is an author you write, you annotate. And you couldn't do it with that old paperback. I lost count of how many times I would break apart the spine on mine, put it together with a rubber band, and hold on to it until I found another one. This is in much better shape. It's as new as the day it was made, and somebody put a covering on it. So that's good. It will go with. I'm inching towards a reread of Edmund Wilson, a large reconsideration of Edmund Wilson. I've, like most book critics, I've had my rounds with him in the boxing ring, sometimes hating, sometimes loving. I'm glad to have this. I didn't have Patriotic Galore. I'm glad to have it. Then this next one is a combined edition. This is such a pretty little thing. I couldn't pass it up for $1. This is by Louise Dickinson Rich. And Louise Dickinson wrote a book. She wrote, I think it was one of her first books, called We Took to the Woods, where she writes about going to the Maine woods, to one particular lake on the border of Maine and New Hampshire, and living the rough life. And it's beautifully written, first of all. Not enough critics at the time noticed that, but it's beautifully written. It's also funny, very much in the vein of The Egg and I. And deeper. There are deeper philosophical threads that run throughout. We Took to the Woods was a really good book. It did really well. Critics noticed it and really liked it. And a few years later, she wrote a sequel called My Neck of the Woods. And I found this lovely combined edition. This is just beautiful. I'll put a dust jacket on this, and it'll do just fine. I haven't reread these things in forever. In fact, I might never have read My Neck of the Woods. I know that I've read We Took to the Woods. Everybody's read once upon a time, everybody had read We Took to the Woods. But I don't know that I've ever read the sequel. But this is an edition that I would want anyway, so I grabbed it. I will lovingly protect it. I'll put a covering over it. Then this next one. This next one. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing. I already know what I think about this book. The thing about the Brattle, everything is cheap. Even inside the shop, all the prices are cheap. Unless you go to the third floor where all the collectible stuff is, but I don't. I saw this thing just at random, and I already know what I think about it. I read the advanced copy. I read the finished copy. I don't think I ever reviewed it for anybody, but I talked about it with a lot of critics. All of them were singing from the same hymn book about how great it was. I did not think it was great. The prose is good. There were a couple of good one-liners, but I didn't think it was the second coming of Moses, which all of my fellow critics did think. But I saw it there, and I was weighing it, and Connor was there at the buying table, and he said, "It's calling to you." And I think he mentioned something about me being a soy boy cuck if I don't buy it. So I did. I added it to the pile. It's this thing. It's by Elizabeth Mackenzie, and it's The Portable Veblen. Her novel, The Portable Veblen, which is, it's wacky and whimsy, and when I read it the first time, I thought, all right, this is so full of twee that it's going to make me sick. And there's nothing else to it than that. A lot of my fellow critics found heart and sinew in this thing that I did not see. And it was right there, and that's the fun of the Brattle. Really, that's the fun of the place, is that it doesn't force you, because I know plenty of old brontosauruses who have gone to the Brattle until they died and were wrapped into their winding sheets with the exact same opinions they had in 1938. So the Brattle doesn't make you open-minded, but it encourages you to be that way. the serendipity of the Brattle, not only on the buying table, but also out in the sale lot. Obviously, it encourages you to be that way. If I'm browsing through the sale lot, and I'm squatting down, and I'm going book by book along some sort of one of the shelves of the book cart, and I see something that I wrote off 50 years ago, and I am in a position in that sale lot to think, well, it's $1. It's right here. Maybe give it another try. And this is a lot more recent than that. This is 2016, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it another try. I saw it right there, so I thought I'd give it another try. This next one, this is also a reread. I think all the rest of these things are rereads of stuff that I definitely want. I found a beautiful hardcover copy with a plastic dust jacket already on it of The Mask of Command by John Keegan, which is it's his book of study of leadership, of military leadership. So I'm a little bit late for Book 2 Book War, but like I said, with Book 2 Book War, I read this stuff all the time anyway, and reread it all the time anyway. This is just a lovely copy that I found. I don't have a copy, didn't have a copy. I always get this in the Penguin, the dinky little Penguin trade paperback. And I don't know why I do that, because I love this author, and I think this is probably my favorite book of his. It's the study of different styles of military command. So he looks at 4 military commanders: Alexander the Great, the Duke of Wellington, Ulysses S. Grant, and Hitler, in order to analyze different aspects of what it's like to be a military leader. And you can see just by those 4 how fascinating that is. How many of those 4 men, off the top of your head, without going to Wikipedia, not that Wikipedia would know, off the top of your head, how many of those 4 men killed an opponent in battle with their own hands? Not a gun, not by order, but hand-to-hand combat. Do you think it's all 4? Which of those is the best commander? And how do we quantify that? I'm going to love rereading this. Going to absolutely love it. I wish it had been around for Book 2 Book War, but it's fine the way it is. Then I found a replacement copy. So this is something that I have read many, many times, but the copy that I had was a trade paperback, and it was falling apart. And I found the hardcover for $1, so I grabbed it. This is Peter Ackroyd, The Collection. This is an anthology of there are a lot of book reviews in here. He's a really good book reviewer. He doesn't do enough of it. A lot of essays in here, lectures or addresses that he would give to undergraduate classes or whatnot. There are some short stories in here. He's not all that good as a fiction writer. Certainly not short stories. There are a couple of his novels that I've liked. But I go back to the critical sections of this book all the time. All the time. So I'm very happy to find a nice durable hardcover there to replace the copy on the big bookcase, full of books about books about book reviews, book essays, that sort of thing. Then I found another just perfect hardcover with a dust jacket already on it, and it's a book that I love. I don't have a copy, so I grabbed it. And this is Paul Monette. This is Borrowed Time. This is one of the greatest memoirs ever written. It's the story of his life with his lover, as his lover first contracts AIDS and then slowly dies of it. It's really the book of an era. If I had to give you written representations of the AIDS era, this would be one of them. This would probably be the first one, and maybe Angels in America as well. But this would be right up there. And it's in perfect condition. It's not the dumb trade paperback that I usually have of this, that I usually find. Don't have it at the moment, so I grabbed it. And then a couple of big fat biographies to wrap us out here. One is something that I sold in bookstores. This is one of the last books that I sold. Let's get the date on it here and see. 2011. Yeah, that was right around the time when I was starting to wean myself off working in a retail bookstore. And I read it. I absolutely loved it. I recommended it to every customer. Every customer that wanted any kind of serious reading experience. I think I praised it exorbitantly on my year-end list that year. It's a biography of Vincent van Gogh. It's by Stephen Naife and Gregory White Smith. And it looks like this. I remember when I was selling it in the bookstore, one of the thoughts I had was, well, that's really cool, because you're putting a kind of impressionistic veneer over an actual portrait. that is actually neat. This was not done haphazardly. This was done in order to create the kind of artistic mediation between the thing and the representation of the thing that Van Gogh made his own. So it's actually a very canny cover design. But I remember thinking when I was selling it, oh, how's that going to work secondhand? That thing's going to be torn apart. It's like cheesecloth. Well, I got my answer because I found a copy today, secondhand. And I'm going to delight in reading this again. This has been, more than a decade since I read this. It's got a ton of clippings in it that somebody took out from a whole bunch of different reviews. But even though somebody did that, I checked to make sure this is not my copy of this book. So that was a delight to find. Always nice to find big fat biographies anyway. Big fat biographies are my favorite things to read. But this one, I was honestly expecting that if I ever saw this used, it wouldn't have the cheesecloth dust jacket. And it does. And it held up fairly well. I'm going to see what I can do. I don't know I don't know how successful I will be in putting a library dust jacket over this thing. I would imagine that's what libraries did. I don't know if it would ruin the effect, and I don't know how possible it would be. I'm going to give it a try because this won't last long. Of my handling of books, this won't last long. And then finally, the last big biography, the last book from today, was Ron Powers' biography of Mark Twain, which I have praised elaborately since it came out. It came out in 2015, is that right? 2005. It came out in 2005. I praised it elaborately. And since then, between 2005 and now, I actually had the pleasure of reviewing Ron Powers. He wrote a book about his son's struggles with schizophrenia and the family's struggles with the American medical establishment, called No One Cares About Crazy People. No One Cares About Crazy People is amazing. Talk about borrowed time. Talking about a great memoir. It is a great memoir. And this is a great biography. I've read all the biographies from Mark Twain. A lot of them have their strengths. A lot of them have their weaknesses. This is, I think, the most eloquent Mark Twain biography that I have ever read. And there is a thread of the author's consideration of Twain that runs throughout this book that you have to be very nimble on your feet to catch. The way you will tell what the author thinks at any given moment in any given text is whether or not he's referring to Clemens or Mark Twain. And Mark Twain is never Twain. It's Mark Twain. He varies. It varies all throughout the book. And in a way that I can't wait to reread this. It's just going to be wonderful. I've read a section of this to you before. I'm pretty sure I want to do it again. Just because I've got the book in hand here and it's going to go in my permanent collection. I want to read you the end of the book. It's not a spoiler, because Mark Twain is dead. You already know this. But I want to read you the end of this book because some authors just do this sort of thing perfectly. Mark Twain has been in Bermuda. He's been vacationing in Bermuda, and he starts to feel chest pains. Again, his chest pains come back. He starts to feel really sick. And he actually tells a friend that he doesn't want to die in Bermuda. So he wants to go home to America. And that's what happens here. On Sunday morning, Clara arrived, and Mark Twain brightened and spoke of his plans for the summer. Outside, the new century stumbled toward its sand belt. In a few weeks, the leading crown heads of Europe, including Archduke Ferdinand, would assemble in London for the funeral of King Edward VI. Their last mingling before World War I ignited. Clemens's breathing grew heavier that evening, and his speech began to slur. He took an opiate and began to speak of dual personalities, and he faded some. And a little later, he blurted out something about the laws of mentality, and after a while went to sleep and faded some more. Halley's Comet was inside the orbit of Venus now, traveling at 3 million miles a day toward its perihelion, its closest point to the sun, which it reached on Tuesday, April 19th. On that day, Mark Twain sent for Clara to come and sing for him, and she managed some Scottish ballads which seemed to comfort him. No one in the house took notice of the comet, though it burned brightly that night. You could read by it. Soon it would be gone. By Wednesday, his mind was wandering out of control, and he had trouble making himself understood and faded some more. On Thursday morning, April 21st, he rallied faintly and tried to read from a volume of Suetonius at his bedside. The Mexican people prepared for revolution against the tyrant Porfirio Diaz. The uprisings of Albanians against the imperial Turks sent cracks through the Ottoman Empire. Plans for war and revolution pulsated through the damned human race. A little before noon, he sent Clara to find Paine, and when Paine arrived, Mark Twain indicated a pair of unfinished manuscripts and whispered, "Throw away," and pressed Paine's hand, and that was the last moment Paine had with him. He faded some more, tried to write a note, but his fine handwriting had deserted him. Electricity lighted cities now, but the lamps were going out. He dozed into the early afternoon, awoke, took the hand of Clara beside him, faded some more, managed to say goodbye, and then murmured something that might have been, if we meet. And then he faded again and kept on fading until there was nothing left of him to hold back the great dark descending on the world, except his words. Oh, man. That is awesome. Until there was nothing left of him to hold back the great dark descending on the world, except his words. Gets to me every time. And the whole rest of the book is great, too. Powers is fantastic on Twain's relationship with his own written works. It's fitting that, a mention of manuscripts is one of the last things here. So I was very happy to get this thing. Very happy to see it. Especially since, I think, with only one exception, all of these things came from the sale lot. So the sale lot is cheap. You are, like I've said many times before, you're going to run out of carrying capacity before you run out of money. And I did, because these are all heavy hardcovers. So that was my trip to the Brattle today. I know I said last time that I doubted I'd go back anytime soon, but if you, as I say many times, if you had the Brattle near you, I think you would go often. I do. So we have Ron Powers' biography of Mark Twain. Fantastic. We have this new-ish biography of Vincent Van Gogh, only 10 years old. Never thought I'd see this used. We have Borrowed Time by Paul Monette, his great AIDS memoir. We have The Collection by Peter Ackroyd. We have Mask of Command by John Keegan. We have It Called to Me by. We have The Portable Veblen. No idea why I gave into this, unless it was just Connor's taunting. We have We Took to the Woods. And the sequel, My Neck of the Woods. That's going to be wonderful. We have Patriotic Gore by Edmund Wilson. And then paperbacks. We have the album by Mary Roberts Rinehart. Never a bad thing to buy a Mary Roberts Rinehart. Although, I'd love, a really nice big anthology or a really nice reprint set. That would be great. I don't think she's currently in print in America. Then Young Dr. Eliot, with women vying for him left, right, and center. We have Don't You Weep, Don't You Moan, which is what Deb said to me on 4 of our wedding nights. And finally, Let Them Eat Bullets, which I think is probably going to win the dubious honor of being the thing from this pile that I read first. How could I resist? Let Them Eat Bullets. So, anyway, that was a follow-up trip to the Brattle. I'm not even going to say that I might not go back. I might go back. I think you would too. But I'll try to control myself. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.